The house felt unnervingly quiet as I watched my parents drive off into the night, leaving me alone for the weekend. "I'll be fine," I reassured them with a smile, but deep down, a seed of unease had already been planted in my mind. As darkness settled in, I found myself wandering from room to room, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched. The house creaked and groaned with each step I took, its old bones seemingly alive with secrets I couldn't begin to fathom. I decided to distract myself by watching a movie, but even the cheerful glow of the TV couldn't dispel the sense of dread that hung in the air. Every shadow seemed to dance and twist, morphing into grotesque shapes that sent shivers down my spine. With a sigh, I turned off the TV and made my way upstairs to bed. As I climbed under the covers, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong. My heart raced as I lay there in the darkness, listening intently for any sign of danger. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence, a soft scratching coming from somewhere in the house. I froze, my breath catching in my throat as fear gripped me like a vice. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to flee from whatever unseen horror lurked in the shadows. But I couldn't move. I was paralyzed with terror, my mind consumed by visions of monsters lurking just beyond the edge of my vision. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying for morning to come and banish the darkness that surrounded me. Minutes stretched into hours as I lay there, trapped in my own personal hell. The scratching continued, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. It seemed to be coming from the closet in my room, but I dared not investigate for fear of what I might find. Just when I thought I couldn't bear it any longer, the scratching abruptly ceased, leaving behind an eerie silence that was almost worse than the noise itself. I lay there, trembling and wide-eyed, waiting for the inevitable terror to descend upon me. And then, without warning, the closet door creaked open, revealing a yawning black void that seemed to swallow the very light around it. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched, transfixed with horror, as something began to emerge from the darkness. It was a hand, a twisted, gnarled thing with long, jagged claws that reached out towards me with a hunger that sent bile rising in my throat. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything to escape the nightmare that had invaded my home. But I was rooted to the spot, unable to move as the hand crept closer and closer, its touch sending waves of icy dread coursing through my veins. And then, just as it seemed poised to claim me for its own, a voice shattered the silence with a guttural growl. "Come with me," it hissed, its words dripping with malice and menace. "Join us in the darkness, where all your fears come to life." I wanted to resist, to fight against the overwhelming terror that threatened to consume me whole. But deep down, I knew that it was futile, that I was already lost to the shadows that had descended upon my home. With a resigned sigh, I reached out towards the waiting hand, knowing that once I crossed that threshold, there would be no turning back. And as darkness enveloped me, I couldn't help but wonder if I would ever escape the nightmare that had become my reality. I awoke with a start, drenched in sweat, the memory of the nightmare still fresh in my mind. It took a moment for me to realize that I was back in my own bed, safe and sound, or so I thought. As I sat up and rubbed the sleep from my eyes, I noticed something strange, a faint scratching sound coming from the closet. My blood ran cold as I remembered the events of the night before, the terror of being trapped in my own home with some unseen horror lurking just out of sight. But surely it had all been a dream, a figment of my overactive imagination. With trembling hands, I reached out and opened the closet door, half expecting to find nothing but darkness staring back at me. To my relief, the closet was empty, or so it seemed. But as I turned to leave, something caught my eye, a shadow, darker than the rest, lurking in the corner of the room. My breath caught in my throat as I watched, paralyzed with fear, as the shadow began to move, slithering across the floor towards me with a sinister purpose. I tried to scream, to run, to do anything to escape the nightmare that had once again invaded my home. But just like before, I was frozen in place, powerless to resist the inexorable advance of the darkness that surrounded me. And as the shadow engulfed me whole, I couldn't help but wonder if this time, there would be no waking up.